Disney, you almost did it. You almost made The Little Mermaid actually okay, but you just had to snap it away from the jaws of victory, didn't you? But before we get started, a quick thank you to my patron over on Patreon, and if you enjoy the content I make and would like to offer your support for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name listed right here at the start of every video. Link is in the description below. And now, let's get into the actual review.
He's a human! You're a mermaid!
That doesn't make us enemies.
The Little Mermaid is yet another Disney live-action remake, number 20, I believe, depending on how you actually define a Disney live-action remake. But anyway, after their last two going straight to streaming, they decided to release this one on the big screen. Just like the original 1989 film, this film tells the story of Ariel, played by Halle Bailey, a young mermaid who falls in love with a human prince, played by Jonah Hauer-King, and makes a deal with a sea witch, played by Melissa McCarthy, in order to become human, but there are some strings attached. So of course, you can't really talk about this film without at the very least mentioning the controversy surrounding the casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel. Now, I don't really want to get too deeply into this topic right now. There's a different time and place to talk about the issue of race swapping, mostly because I have so much to talk about with this film already, and also because with regards to this film, I genuinely do not care. It's a fairy tale set on a fictional island, so as far as I can see, they can do with race whatever they see fit. This is not Queen Cleopatra levels of bad. Not even close. But yeah, since she's been brought up, let's talk about Halle Bailey's performance as Ariel. If you want my honest opinion, she's probably the best thing about this film. If there's one thing she managed to capture so well from the original, it was the character's curiosity, her desire to explore, her desire to want to know how things worked or what things were used for. She's likable and comes across as genuine, and thankfully she's able to communicate a lot through facial expressions, which is important for a character where for about half the movie she can't talk. Also, she definitely can sing, which is not something I can say about some of the other actors in this movie, but we'll get to that. But yeah, overall, she does work in the role. Nothing truly amazing or spectacular, but very good. The rest of the cast is mostly passable. Jonah Hauer-King as Prince Eric ranges from bland milquetoast to surprisingly decent. At first, I thought Daveed Diggs wasn't really going to work as Sebastian, but it actually kind of surprised me how much and how quickly he managed to win me over. Awkwafina as Scuttle is... we'll talk about her a little bit later. Jacob Tremblay is decently cast as Flounder, although it doesn't really feel like he's given much to do. Javier Bardem was a good pick as King Triton, but again, he's not really given much time or room to really stand out. Melissa McCarthy was an excellent replacement for Pat Carroll to play Ursula, and I honestly couldn't imagine anybody else playing the live-action version of her. She just exudes wickedness every single scene that she's in, and her scenes are probably some of the best in the film. And Art Malik gives a shockingly memorable performance as Sir Grimsby. He puts in a ton of effort for what could have been just a throwaway side character. And I guess since we're being positive, let's go over some of the other good stuff, because truth be told, there are things to like in here. I mean, it does maintain the same general story of the original, so it does have that going for it. There's a few good changes that have been added as well, like how Prince Eric also collects stuff just like Ariel does, which, does a good job at furthering this connection between the two of them. There's a few funny one-liners. Halle Bailey does a good job at recreating the scene of Ariel using a fork to twirl her hair. Under the Sea was fun to watch, although it's really hard to screw up something that bouncy and iconic. And the climax is, by and large, an enjoyable watch. The film's visual style, on the other hand, is largely a mixed bag. Now, the lighting that I thought was going to be a problem based on some of the promotional material really isn't a problem here. I wonder if they took the criticism to heart and actually chose to go back and fix it. So yeah, the cinematography actually is pretty good, especially for the scenes that are on the surface where they don't have to use CG. And even then, some of the underwater effects are passable enough. They don't necessarily look real per se, but they at least look good. They're pleasant enough to the eye, and even at times manages to create this kind of tropical-esque feel to it. The underwater movements are where we really start to get into some issues. The characters will kind of move or jerk around in a way that looks pretty awkward and doesn't look quite right, or the faces of the characters will kind of feel like they're a frame or two behind the body's movement. It creates this kind of uncanny effect that doesn't look quite right, even if you can't quite pinpoint what exactly the problem is. And that's not even getting into what they did to poor Flounder. I don't know what happened, but his design is horrific. There are absolutely no distinguishable characteristics about him whatsoever. If you were to take his design and put the CG model side by side with two random background fishes, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you which one was supposed to be Flounder. I just saw the movie and I barely remember what he looks like. And then there's the several much bigger problems that will occasionally drag the film down from its merely watchable level that it's usually at to absolutely unbearable. And a lot of those moments can be placed right at the feet of the decision to have Awkwafina do the voice of Scuttle. Whoever made that decision, whoever thought that she was in any way a suitable replacement for Buddy Hackett, should be immediately fired. And then rehired just so they can fire them again. I'm generally one of the people who finds Awkwafina at the very least passable most of the time, but good grief is she annoying here. I don't know if it's because of the voice direction she was given, or the lines of dialogue she had, or some combination of the two, but man, it is not a good fit at all. And some of the choices made here are just downright bizarre. Why did Ursula make it so that Ariel forgot about the True Love's Kiss addendum? I don't know. It doesn't amount to anything and changes nothing. Why did they have Ariel perform an entire song in her head during the period where she can't talk? You know, why couldn't you just let the actress use her body movement and facial expressions to get across what the character was thinking? Again, I don't have an answer for this. And yeah, since it's been brought up, there are several songs that have been added to this film, all written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And they're not very good. Not only that, but they do not mesh with the Howard Ashmore lyrics and Alan Menken music from the original. One of the songs, The Scuttlebutt, is ridiculously terrible. Probably one of the worst songs in a professional Disney movie. It's not only a horrible melody with jaw-droppingly bad lyrics, not only does its rap style not at all match the tone of the rest of the film, they even have Awkwafina sing it. I don't know if they make Novocaine for your ears, but I needed some during that number. And then he also wrote a song for Prince Eric as well. It's probably the most tolerable song of the new ones, except for the fact that Jonah Hauer-King can't sing either. You know, Disney, if you have an actor that can't perform a song, there is no shame in hiring someone else to perform the song for them and then have the actors lip sync. It's been done for decades. You used to do it. But yeah, I don't know why these songs were included. They're completely irrelevant and they're not good enough to be in here, especially in a film that is over 130 minutes long to tell a story the original did in 90. It's not like you guys needed to pad the runtime. And for all the talks that this film was going to be a more progressive take on the story, how this was going to really reinvent the way you see the story, it really doesn't. It actually follows the animated film almost beat for beat the same. Most of the changes it makes are incredibly minor, with the exception of some, not exclusively, but largely, pointless additions. Aside from one line from Kiss the Girl being changed, nothing is really done to quote-unquote modernize the story. Whether or not that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave to you, but again, I have to wonder, if you're not going to tell a new story, why even bother remaking it? So, what's the bottom line here? Ironically, the one thing that got people so up in arms in the first place is actually probably the best part of the film. For what it's worth, Halle Bailey gets the characterization down and she has a really good singing voice. Sure, she's not perfect. There are moments where you can tell she's really struggling at pretending that something's there when it's not, but overall she was pretty likable and charming in the role. But unfortunately, this movie has several things working against it. Some of the casting decisions don't work. I don't know what Lin-Manuel Miranda's new songs are doing in this film. The visual style is incredibly mixed and sometimes looks off in the weirdest ways. And yeah, you really can't shake off the feeling that this did not need to exist. Now, this one's not as pointless as The Lion King, as boring as Mulan, or as insulting as Pinocchio, but it doesn't really do anything to really reinvigorate the story. The live-action remake that this one reminded me the most of was that of the Beauty and the Beast remake. With the exception of the colorblind casting, this movie plays it very safe. It follows the story very closely, but takes longer to tell it, primarily by adding new songs or little details that, in the long run, don't add up to anything, or were done in an attempt to fix or cover up plot holes in the original film that honestly didn't need fixing in the first place. Now, if you need something to take the kids to, like if they're bored and want to go out to the theater but they've already seen Super Mario Bros. Movie, you could certainly do worse. It's fine enough. But otherwise, if you're really that curious about how they handled the shift from animation to live action, just wait for it on streaming. Now, is it the disaster that I feared it would be? No. It does too many things right to be declared a disaster. It is a perfectly serviceable film. One that I definitely can't disrecommend like some of Disney's worst films, but I definitely can't tell you to seek it out either. The Little Mermaid gets a half-empty shot. A high half-empty shot for sure, but a half-empty shot nonetheless. Although I will add that had Awkwafina not been the voice of Scuttle, or if the Scuttlebutt was not in the movie, I would actually be tempted to give this a half-full shot. So make of that information what you will. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you want to see my early thoughts of any film I watch or to read more of my reviews, make sure to check out my Letterboxd account. The link to that is in the description below. And make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss any upcoming reviews. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.